Well, the fire has gone out of these guys now, and they will know that fairly shortly they will feel the breath of the Polish squad on their backs, because the Poles are doing a magnificent job on the front of the main field, trying to pull this race back together. And the fact that that leading group now has split into two groups of 5 and 4, I think we will see the whole race coming back together. But it's going to be a long, hard chase by the Poles. This group now of 4 filled just inside 1 minute in arrears of the leading group of 5.
Yes, they've more or less given up now. Once they've dropped, there's no point in continuing on. You may as well just ride round till the peloton picks you up and see if there's anything left in those legs. Back into the danger zone, which is there's the French with all the bags hanging out. But it looks as though Francis Moreau, yes, he got one. He's had an unfortunate season this year. He's had 2 crashes very early on. Francis Moreau broke his collarbone in the first one, then fractured his skull in the second. But at least he's got himself back into form.
Second group of 4 riders here, the 2 Spaniards on the front there, Diaz Justo and Eladio Jimenez. Jimenez taking a stage victory in the Vuelta a España, and certainly regarded by many as one of the great Spanish hopes for the future. A huge turnaround in Spanish cycling, when a few years ago one wouldn't have expected to see the Spanish being so competitive in the one-day World Championships. But since Abraham Olano took their first title in Colombia, and then followed that up last year with a win by Oscar Freire, I think they're fancying their chances today. And Oscar Freire, for me, Phil, still has to be a super chance at the finish, because this circuit is not a circuit for the major climbers. And if it's a group of riders of 25 or 30 left towards the end, then really Oscar Freire has a chance of being one of the rare world champions to take the title twice on the road.
Well, that would be rather nice for Freire, especially after his surprise victory last year, but his great season that has followed since. De Luca on the left of our picture, man of quality, I think, and we'll be very happy the way things are going. With 7 laps to go, here's the bunch. Now, are they coming to the start-finishing line? If so, the clock will be on them. It's not long since the leaders have gone through. They are getting much closer than they were. It was 3.5 minutes, but I think the effort by the Poles has slashed that right down now.
Still an awful lot of bike riders left in the event at the moment. The amazing thing about the World Championships is it's this constant pressure, and there you can see the Spaniards fill in about 10th position there, still looking pretty comfortable, pretty happy with the situation. Axel Merckx was still in the main field there, looking quite comfortable, and Gordon Macaulay, I think I caught a sign off there, the Kiwi rider. Just 2 Kiwis in the field here, one Chris Jenner, the other Macaulay. And looking down there, you can see that there is still a very large field left in the professional World Championships.
Well, these boys haven't really turned the pedal in anger. They've sat behind the poles. There's the gap, though. Still quite a considerable one. They've really held on here. 3:24 it is now at 7 to go.
It's really going to hurt the Polish team later on, and everybody else for the moment pretty happy just to sit back and allow them to set all the pace-making at the front. Alexander Vinokurov still in the main field, but a glimpse of him. There's the other Estonian rider, Jan Kirsipu. Kirsipu, another man that if the race doesn't toughen up towards the end there, in fact, is Andre Schmeel, still looking very comfortable. Strange way to eat a bottle, but maybe he's just found a different way of drinking.
He'll never get it down, no matter how hard he tries. But Schmeel will feel things are under control just now. There's a nice view again of the town of Pluet. This race on the outskirts. The town itself is full of narrow streets, and you couldn't run the race through there. So they're on the outskirts here as the peloton, still a big one, speeds on its way, still working out how they're going to close the gap, because the last time round it was 3.5. They've only knocked 7 seconds off this time, and that's not an indication they're going to wipe them out yet. The Poles are going to request some help soon, I think.
Well, 54 seconds, that group of 4 is in arrears of the leading group of 5 in the main field, 3.5 minutes behind right now, and all of the pressure, Phil, still coming from that Polish squad. These are the 4 riders caught in the middle. Walter Beneteau is number 25, rides for the Bonjour team, and the 2 Spaniards, they really did get caught out there, Diaz Justo and Eladio Jimenez. And Sergei Lelekin, well, I think he's just pretty happy to be there, because Lelekin is not a rider on one of the top international teams. In fact, this is the first time I've seen Lelekin racing, and he must be pretty happy to be at the front of the World Championships. A big chance for a rider like him to interest the sponsors and possibly ride into a professional squad for next season.
Well, Beneteau there got round his first Tour de France this year. He's only a youngster. Another one of the fines, I think. Finished 71st, but the fact was he finished, and he seems to have come here determined to establish at least an impression on the event.
Well, another team coming to the front now. It may well be red and white, but this time, in fact, it's the Danish team have decided to send 1 or 2 riders further forward. They've seen the big pressure that the Poles have been put under and decided now is the time to come forward and help out in the organisation of the front of this pack. And now that we are getting another team interested, it may well be a time that the main group in front will start to get pulled back. The thing about the Danish team is we did see a very impressive Rolf Sørensen a week ago in Paris Tours, and it may well be that Rolf is looking for the biggest title of his career. He's won almost every major one-day race that there is on the calendar, but he's never been world champion.
This is the dangerous stretch. We've had quite a few little tumbles here with the women juniors and the espoirs coming down this section. And the sharp left hand, I think it's Alan Johansson who's on the front. He's a sort of elder statesman now of the Danish riders, but even so, he was a late turning professional, and he is a strong man, so they'll welcome him up the front, and the Poles could do with a break anyway, because I don't know how many laps they've been chasing, at least 4.
It's very difficult for them, and this is the technical part of the course. And I tell you one thing, you don't want to be in 30th or 40th position right now, because you're hanging right onto the wheel of the rider in front of you. There are the 4 riders who were caught in no man's land, so they're just about to get brought back into the fold, and so now the race situation will be the 5 leaders with the rest of the main pack together.
About to swoop round a roundabout, and the 4 riders rounded first on the inside track. There's the field right onto them now, so the field will soon work out they haven't got them all if they didn't know already, and they'll assess who they've caught and who they haven't. There they are, the 2 Spanish, the Russian and the Frenchman are back in the fold. Where's the other Spanish rider? He'll be around somewhere.
Well, now that this situation has happened on the road, I think we may well see Spain coming forward as well, Phil, because Oscar Freire must certainly be a serious challenger for the title if they can keep a large group together. And it seems for the moment as if there hasn't been too much devastation at the back of this pack, and it is a very large group. The whistles and the shouts going forward now from the Poles. The Poles realizing that Spain now don't have any riders in the front, so they've cut off the power, they've set up, and now I think we will see a change in the front of the main field. I
think you're right. They've now said that the other boys have got no excuse now for not giving us a hand, so if they won't do it, then we won't bother either. And the reaction coming straight away from Spain. That was a good decision by the Polish riders. Otherwise, these boys would have thanked them all the way to the finish and then taken the medals. Now Spain go out on the attack.
Well, that's a bit strange. Spain there not really wanting to come to the front and organise a chase and deciding to launch a man off the front. Not a very sensible move at this stage in the game, because those riders are still more than 2.5 minutes in front, and trying to ride across a gap like that at the World Championships is basically a waste of energy.
Well, he's a tall boy, and the tall boy which comes to mind is Martin Perdeguero, who is on the attack here. And the riders try to reorganise themselves to see if they can get the counter action going. Remember that there's still 5 riders, 3 minutes and 20 seconds ahead.
This is a tough course. You can actually see, looking at the pavement out there as well, that it's not a smooth surface here. These Breton roads, the small roads away from the main highways, are very, very rough, and they're not really rolling it along as well. It's very difficult to get any kind of moving. This in fact looks very much like Jose Enrique Gutierrez, who's going forward.
I told you it was Perdeguero, didn't I?
I know you did. You've always been good on your Spanish riders. You can see that was a clever move though by the Spanish. This is how he got away. He had a teammate on his wheel there, and as soon as they got to the front of the pack, he sat up and allowed this man to go clear. But I don't think he's too far off the front of the main pack right now.
What a great season Kelme have had too, running out team winners in the Tour de France. Wonderful performance, and challenges all of the way. And now we've got Heras, winner of the Tour of Spain. Rumours, by the way, he might move across to Lance Armstrong's side.
Well, that would be an incredible move for the US Postal Service team, though he does still hold a valid contract with the Kelme squad. It is an interesting move for him to move across there. He said that he made those contacts well before the Tour of Spain. He's very interested to ride along Armstrong and learn how to ride time trials. He feels that he would be a much more improved rider riding alongside Armstrong for a couple of years, and maybe then have a crack at winning the Tour de France overall. The main field coming up towards the finishing area. Still a huge pack of riders, Phil. Nobody yet has managed to break the stranglehold, and not really a very clever tactical move by the Spanish right now, because they do have a serious challenger for the win in Oscar Freire. and they need to get themselves pretty much organized at the front of the pack if they're going to pull that leading group of 5 back.
Well, this man's proving to be a nice little carrot here now, or a nice large carrot actually, in Gutierrez. So we're looking down, riders trying to get away from the front of the pack. The sign writers have been busy. Well, this is an interesting attack. The Polish rider still setting the pace, trying to keep everybody on the toes. It's a tough one. This is Piotr Radecki, the Moroz rider. He's had a good day. There are 3 riders on the Moroz team made the selection for the Polish team, and I think they've got 8 men on the start line today.
Well, Radecki wearing a slightly different jersey to the rest of the team there, and I'm not sure that's allowed at the World Championships. He's actually wearing the Polish National Road Racing Champions jersey, and at the World Championships you're supposed to wear the national jersey of your country, but today he's decided to opt for that. He may well find himself getting a slight fine from the Union Cycliste Internationale. He's 2-time national champion of Poland. Actually, he took the time trial championships as well.
Well, the design's the same, it's just the writing on the top alters a bit, so they might get away with that. Anyway, it looks as though Gonzalez is getting away with nothing, because Gutierrez rather, he's being caught. And now the Italians, and this is Bettini, who are now trying to stir things up a bit. They've sensed it's getting time. Now De Luca may not be too happy with this.
Surprised to see. I think he just wants to pull the Spanish rider back into the fold right there. A little test of the legs to see how everybody else was going to attack. Gutierrez looks over his shoulder, realizes it's all over right now. And it's still the Polish coming to the front. That is Zevgeny Spruk there moving forward. You can see the blue and pink shorts of the Lampre squad. He too coming forward right now just to show the team that he is there, still in the bike race. But he shouldn't have come off the front like that right now.
Well, that bunch is thinning out rather dramatically now. Gutierrez is showing his resistance, but now it's all over. Now the serious boys are beginning to fire. This looks like it being a good lap, and surely it was 3:24 last time around. And that was a 19-minute 35 lap, by the way. Surely now on lap 13 we're going to see that gap come down.
Well, the hammer now starting to come down a little more. Everybody trying to raise the tempo in this main field, but you can always see when it's hurting, because riders looking over their shoulders to see if the gaps are appearing in the main field, and they're not right now. There's a couple of Dutch riders moving forward there. Michael Bogard is in the group quite comfortably. There's Scotty Sunderland halfway down the pack, looking further down the main field. A lot of these riders really are starting to suffer right now.
Yes, this is the crunch period. There's always stages of a World Championship when you have to grit your teeth and hope you survive to come through the other end, and this is one of those periods now. At around 180 kilometers covered, some 80 kilometers still to race. They've got to answer the pressure being put on. We're chasing at 5 survivors of 9, and the gap is coming down.
It's not coming down very rapidly at the moment though, as Alexander Vinokurov comes to the front here, the rider from Kazakhstan, Olympic silver medalist, a magnificent bike rider, one of a great Kazakhstan international amateur team who raced all over the world and then literally exploded. Nearly every one of those riders getting a professional contract. You can see the pressure now as people move left and right in that front of that spearhead, trying to be near the front but not wanting to put their noses into the wind at the moment.
I don't blame them. Back up to the front runners. Another lap can be ticked off here, reaching the 184 kilometer point, and then the clock will start and we'll see what they've got. That's Beauchat of Switzerland. Quite like the Swiss team colours as they come through, and I like the new Italian colours too. De Luca's wearing those, sat at the back. These riders have been away now since the 60th kilometre, so 120 kilometres in the lead, which is some 70 miles out front. 4 hours 22 as they go out on lap 14.
6 laps remaining. Beauchat has had a pretty reasonable season. He's a young rider with 1 victory to his credit, and that was just a couple of weeks ago in the Hessen Rundfahrt when he took out the 2nd stage, as Austria moves to the front. There in the middle for France is Brochard. There's a Frenchman there on the left-hand side with a slight problem, and that looks very much as if it's Laurent Jalabert got his arm in the air.
Well, now this is a far more serious situation for Jalabert if he has. Laurent Brochard going through camera now. He's also right at the sharp end, looking for the move perhaps. This is the area now. You must hold position. There's poor old Jalabert there. Must have a flat tyre.
He has a serious problem. His hand has been up. He's looking over to see if there are any teammates around right now. And I wonder, there's the French team car right at the front of the pack, but this is not the time to have an incident because the pressure is pretty much on at the front of the pack right now. And if he finds himself off the back with a mechanical incident, he's going to have a hard time getting himself back into the race.
Just look at Radetzky here, drive this race on. He is going like a train. It's a bit of a performance for the crowd, I think, this to the start-finishing line, but he's going well. Brochard sprinting up on the left of our picture, trying to join 3 men on the attack. There's the tying up. My goodness me, it's come down this time. 2 minutes 8 seconds the gap.
It's still been a very long and hard chase, Phil, to pull back from 4.5 minutes to 2 minutes, but I do feel now that we will see the end of that leading group of 5 fairly shortly. Well, another man has climbed into the pits. This is Frédéric Pinault of France, and this is the part of the race now where we can expect more and more riders to pull away from the race. 1 minute 55 seconds is the official time on the board for the 5 riders at the front of the bike race, and still Christophe Moreau is the man really keeping the pressure on. He's the man who's got the most to gain from a situation like this, as well as Danilo De Luca in second position there. De Luca must be just keeping his fingers crossed and hoping there's going to be some tactical maneuvers in the main field behind, but that doesn't happen at the World Championships. Once you get to the critical part of the race, the hammer really does start to go down, and Brochard is the man putting the hammer down right now. He's going off the front of the pack, Phil, and you can hear the French crowd.
Well, we're looking at the man who has won the world title in the past, facing all sorts of accusations that he may have won it on drugs, but that's what's coming out of the Festina affair, of which Brochard is very much a part of that. But right now he's trying to redeem himself here as he tries to rip clear of the field. Ideally he wants a small group with him.
Belgians sending a man up there to try and get onto the tail. It looked like Nico Matin moving forward. It isn't, in fact, Nico Matin. It's one of the other Belgian riders. That's Michael van Heijken who's got across. He's not a rider we see an awful lot of on the international circuit. The man I feel they're working for today must be André Schmil. And at the back of the pack, we're hearing over race radio that there is a problem with Laurent Jalabert.
Well, that's a real shame. The question is, he's going to be very unlucky because the hammer has gone down right at the moment he slid off the back of the field. We're now on to lap 14 here, 185 kilometres covered for the main field. The leaders just a little bit further ahead, but not by much now. They're probably inside 2 minutes now after this flurry of attacks.
Tell you what, the hammer is really down right now. Everybody is trying to get off the front. Everybody is trying to form the counter-attack in pursuit of those 5 leaders at the moment. Their advantage has come down pretty rapidly. It was at one time 4.5 minutes. It's now well inside of 2 minutes, and the speed is obviously different in the main field. You can see the difference in the speed. These riders, Phil, now are approaching 50 kilometers an hour, and this lap, if they keep this pressure on, is going to be pretty close to the fastest so far.
But the impetus slipping just a bit as that flurry of attacks has been brought back to heel. The riders looking for who's going to move next. The lap time itself was not great, 19:35 followed by a 19:41, so nothing approaching the 18:09 done when the original break went away on lap 4.
Christophe Moreau leading them into the finishing straight. There is Danilo De Luca. De Luca's a magnificent bike rider, and there's been some incredible sums of money bandied around to try and pick up this bike rider. Sums of money well in excess of the $1 million per year, and I certainly think that he's going to be a great bike rider. Very cocky for the moment, knows exactly what he wants to do, and he so dearly wanted the Maglia Rossa in the Giro d'Italia this year. The huge crowd is not, though, for Danilo De Luca with the green shirt there. It's for Christophe Moreau, the French representative in this leading group of 5.
200 kilometres, give or take a kilometre under the wheels now. And this is, looks as though Matej Pronk has been left, has he, by the leaders? Gritting his teeth anyway. Spot a bother, he was in the breakaway, but he's in trouble now.
Well, that's a surprise. He may well have had a mechanical incident because he seemed to be riding fairly well there. He's 30 seconds or more in arrears of that leading group of riders.
He must have punctured. We never heard about that, but he must have punctured as he goes into 5 laps to go.
A bit of calm coming to the front of the main field right now, but you can notice now the organisation starting to come in from the Italians. A lot of those green shouldered jerseys moving to the front. That's the Italian squad, the new Italian strip. they've got a pretty good role to play here right now, because they have Danilo De Luca in the leading group of riders, but they also have Michele Bartoli. Bartoli just on the right-hand side there with the tricolor helmet on, that helmet indicating he's the national champion of Italy this year. And he likes this circuit. He said openly when he won the Grand Prix of Plouay in the month of August that he'd like to come back in a couple of months' time and find himself crowned the world champion. He was the super favorite before the start of the championships, and for the moment he hasn't made a wrong move.
And these 3 riders surviving here now, or 4 riders, sorry, Beauchat sitting on the back of them. I don't know if you noticed Barty there, Paul. He's still got his top jersey on, his zip up top. I mean, that's something you wouldn't normally see in a World Championship with some 5 laps still to race.
Still pretty cool for the moment. There is his teammate Paolo Bettini, wears 39 in second position, right up against the barriers right now. But the main field slowly but surely starting to reduce in numbers, and it's in the last 2 or 3 laps we'll see riders disappearing from this group. It's still pretty big though for this state of a World Championships. 5 laps still to go to the finish, and a huge convoy of cars behind the riders. All the major nations are allowed to bring 12 riders to the World Championships, and the lesser teams are allowed to bring just 8. The defending team, which is in this instance Spain, would have been allowed to start 13 riders here at the World Championships, Alano being the 13th man, and he in fact decided to take his dummy and go home after he was beaten in the individual time trial. But it's a big advantage, and this is all decided on the rankings of the teams in the international field. The UCI ranks all of the countries, and if you finish in the top 6, you're allowed to bring 12 riders to the World Championships.
Just sort of caught a glimpse there at the head of the field of Chan McRae, who had a great ride last year and finished 5th. I think he's the only survivor left in now of the Americans. I think all of the others, there weren't many of them, are now out. Antonio Cruz, who also rode in the World Championships, Danny Pate and Fred Rodriguez. Haven't seen Fred at all, the American champion, but McRae's still certainly at the thick end of the race.
Pretty close to the front there, wearing 36 is Richard Vironk, and I wonder what's going through his mind right now as Mate Pronk has been caught. That leaves just 4 riders at the front of the World Championships right now, and their advantage is coming down all of the time.
I just had the feeling that Pronk did have a flat tyre there, but anyway, it doesn't matter now. He's back in the field. Of the 9 originals, 4 survive as the race continues to chase them all down. Still 1 or 2 Belgians there. They are working, of course, for André Schmil. Bartoli tucked in nicely. How he would like to round off his season with a world title. There he is over to the right. No, there he is gone now. I don't know where he's gone.
He's keeping pretty close. He's in the first 5 or 6 riders there, just off to the right-hand side. He's keeping himself off the front of the main field right now, but also as close to the front as possible in case there are any surprise attacks. Right in the middle there is Axel Merckx in the Belgian jersey, just going off to the left. There he is now with the orange jersey on right now. Big, strong rider, Axel. Looking pretty nervous right now, looking over his shoulder. Probably wants to know the whereabouts of André Schmil. What a great season Axel has had. He's brought his dad an awful lot of emotion. A great individual stage victory in the Giro d'Italia, when I could not believe that he would come back after a dramatic crash. And then in the month of June, he took the national championships, and it's been a long time since the Belgians have seen the name Merckx right at the top of the leaderboard. And I tell you one thing, they say that Eddie was actually there commentating for Belgian television, and they had to rip the microphone away from him with about 10 kilometers to go.
Well, you know, Merckx followed by Merckx is a pretty sensational thing to happen, because apart from Johan Museeuw and a couple of flurries by 1 or 2 other riders, there hasn't been much to shout for in Belgium in recent years. The Italians at the minute are doing everything right. They've got all of their players at the front. The Spanish riders are riding in defense of Oscar Freire again. It's an interesting move, this. The big guns are firing. The big teams who boast 12 starters are now showing the advantage of having so many riders on the start line.
Well-drilled squads coming forward now, getting team tactics, and I do feel that the Spanish really only have one major chance in their ranks, and that is the defending champion Oscar Freire, and that would be pretty impressive if he could make it 2 in a row. The last time that was done by Gianni Bugno, and it's very rare for a world title to happen twice in succession. field, Phil, does look to be reducing in numbers somewhat, and it really is becoming a war of attrition as we rejoin the 4 leaders, and they're looking a little bit more ragged than they did earlier on. This climb, although not very much if you do it just on one occasion, after 5 or 6 hours in the saddle, really does start to become quite a mountain. It feels as if somebody's got a hydraulic jack underneath it and they're lifting it up each time you come around.
Those legs are not going to make it to the finish on these 4 riders, and there's the reason why. 1 minute 10 seconds now back to the peloton. Robbie Hunter, the latest rider to reach our ears from South Africa, who's now retired.
Well, in fact, although the time gap was just over the 1 minute, I've noticed they're pushing all of the cars out of the gap right now, and these guys know what that means. That's why Marichal there from Belgium is looking over his shoulder. It means once they start pushing all of the cars out of the way, that the gap is coming down pretty rapidly. And the last time check of 1 minute, I think when we pull back, may well only be 30 seconds.
Well, they are on a hill, and we haven't found them yet. There they are. No, I think you're right. 50 seconds is probably the gap now. They're coming very quickly. And when the capture arrives, as it surely will, then we're going to see a flurry of attacks, I am sure, because there are far too many riders here dreaming of a rainbow jersey right now.
Still a lot of big names in this group. Sergei Ivanov was still there for Russia. Looking a little bit further down the pack, Scotty Sunderland is still in there as well for Australia. Caught a quick glimpse of him. This man here is Roberto Laiseca, the man we saw taking a stage victory at the Vuelta a España. A very good bike rider, finished high in the overall rankings as well. Spain on the front, completely organized, trying to pull this back, trying to keep a large group together for their man, the defending champion Oscar Freire.
And Richard Virenque is also there now, centre left of our picture, and still looking pretty cool here. 54 seconds, so that wasn't a bad guess by us, was it, as they now start to close in. This is going to be a most interesting move here now.
Yevgeny Spruk, Polish rider on the right-hand side. He now has to ride very close to the front of the pack after all of the work that was done by his teammates to pull back that advantage, which at one time was 4.5 minutes. Virenque looking over to see where everybody else is. There is Andre Schmeel a little further back in the light blue jersey of the Belgians. And if we can have a look further down the field, we'll get a chance to see if Laurent Jalabert managed to get himself back into the main field. There is Oscar Freire, Phil, wearing number 1 there, pretty close to the front of the pack. Magnificent bike rider, defending champion, and looking very seriously as a major contender here to take the win twice.
And the only Aussie left in the race, I think now, Scott Sunderland, is right up there as well. Like Andre Taffy, he's got a point to prove. Max Chandry still going through there. There's still 2 of the 3 British riders in this race. The other one didn't start, by the way. John Tanner and Charlie Vergalius, sorry, Max Chandry and Charlie Vergalius are the 2 riders left in this race, and they're both up there too.
Well, looking down that long main field there, I didn't catch much of a sign of Laurent Jalabert, but it's very easy to hide in the main pack. The 4 leaders over the top of the climb now starting to organize themselves just a little bit. Marichal is the man in first place. Danilo De Luca's face not giving anything away right now, but I think he realizes he's had his chance of glory at the World Championships. It's been a major help for the Italians, but basically for these 4 riders, as the pace picks up towards the end, they will get caught and probably spat out of the back.
But it's still been a superb ride. Over 100 miles in the lead now for those 4 survivors of the 9 who escaped originally, as again the Italians now trying to take control and trying desperately now to reduce that lead. Often wonder, Paul, why Italians are chasing an Italian.
I think they've realized now that the race is over. They realize that the fact is those 4 riders have been in the breakaway situation for a long time, and maybe the word has come back that in fact Danilo De Luca is not in excellent form, is not certainly going to win, and the Italians feel that this is the moment they really need to put out. This is Michele Bartoli, El Gatto, the cat they call him. He's coming out of the front of the pack right now. He knows this course. This is where he won the Grand Prix of Plouay, and this is the first major serious attack of the race.
Well, Bartoli now trying to rip this field to shreds here as we go into the closing laps of the event. There's still De Luca up in the front. He'll be not happy at the thought the Italians are throwing their best men at the race now to reduce that lead, but we are inside a minute, well inside a minute now to those leaders. We say bye-bye to Plouay again as we move out on these closing laps of the World Championship.
That attack hurt. The Italian in third position there is Davide Rebellin. Michael Bogard is there in the orange. I'm not quite sure what Michele wants. Come on, boys, let's get working. He looks over his shoulder to see what sort of damage has been done. Not really enough for the moment. There's still an awful lot of bike riders still in contact.
Well, the thing was, I didn't see Schmil making that break, so there was no reason for the Belgian rider to start working there. And besides, Bartoli is not slow in cajoling everybody into action. It's a question whether you're strong enough to say no thanks.
When he looks over his shoulder here, he sees that they've got the gap here, and he's saying go, 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 because we have a gap, but nobody else wants to. The Belgian orders are obviously there. You can see that they're not going to work at all unless Andre Schmil is in the front split of riders. A general regrouping once again happening in this bike race, but that was a pretty serious attack there by Michele Bartoli.
Yes, it's one of those cases, and I wish our camera was at the back of the race, because I'm quite sure we lost a few riders with that flurry of activity.
Absolutely. Many riders will have been put under pressure there, but they need to keep this pressure on over the top. Otherwise, riders will recover. They have a slight gap over the rest of the field right now as Paolo Bettini comes forward to insist and accelerate. A lot of Mapei riders in this Italian selection, but they haven't split the main field right now, Phil. There will be one or two riders at the back suffering, but there's still around about 60 riders in this group.
All coming back together again. It's being left to the Italians now to drive on all of the time.
Maximilian Chianri riding pretty much to the front, very much in the autumn of his career now, Max, but still having, I reckon, a pretty good season. He was so close to getting himself a stage victory in the Giro d'Italia earlier this year. He then was selected for the Great Britain team for the Olympic Games, and here at this crunch time riding very well to the front of the pack at the World Championships.
There's the view of the farmland around Plouay as the field now work out how they can bridge a gap of some 35 seconds. It's not much more than that to the leaders, and they're all having a go now. The Swiss riders getting into the action, and this looks to me like Andre Schmil. Now they're going to have to react to this one.
Schmil looking very strong. He's dedicated the whole latter half of his season to this World Championships right now, and that really has caught the Italians hopping. The Italians looking over their shoulders now. They want to organise the chase at the front, but they need to chase down pretty rapidly. I can't really get an ID on the Swiss rider in there, but that is definitely Andre Schmil. And they haven't got very much of an advantage over the pack, but they are coming now to the fairly technical part of the course, so this is a possibility to open up the gap.
Well, the field, the message will soon spread down that Schmil is getting a bit active now. That peloton still, though, very unwieldy and quite large. This is back up to the leaders, but now it's all over. The leaders are the main field, as all of a sudden they've wiped it all out, and after more than 100 miles in the lead, the World Championship is again up for grabs.
First man to make the junction there is Andre Schmil, but the main field are not really very far behind at the moment. And over the next few laps, Phil, every time we hit that climb up through the finishing straight in Plouay, there will be attacks. They'll be trying to force a small group of riders off the front. They're sitting up right now. This is a moment, a lull, having caught the four leaders. Everybody's trying to re-ascertain the tactics, who they need to launch forward onto the attack. But certainly Andre Schmil there in the middle of the picture, announcing the colours. He's in form and wants to take out the win here.
Well, he's a frisky man at this stage of any race. 2.5 laps still to go, and anybody